Well, it's a good thing I recently relocated my studio to Japan. I always liked how even though this is the warning screen, you can still enter in coins. And hey, credits 3. It registered.
Poto
Welcome to Poto Poto. Not to be confused with Puyo Puyo, which, funnily enough, Sega themselves... That's not true. Compile. Made Puyo Puyo. So I guess this could be a ripoff of Puyo Puyo. It's just kind of funny. Can you imagine if this was, like Sega trying to do... Okay, first off, I don't know which side I'm on. Am I on the left one? Okay, I can almost understand how these mechanics work. Jeez. But, wouldn't it be funny if Sega made this Puyo Puyo clone, and then, well, calling it a Puyo Puyo clone is a little bit reductive, because I don't think this is necessarily a Puyo Puyo clone. It's more like a puzzle game with a name similar to Puyo Puyo, which I guess, depending on how unsophisticated you are, constitutes a Puyo Puyo clone. But I wonder if Sega eventually bought the Puyo Puyo license in revenge for Puyo Puyo making, like just to have their final revenge on Puyo Puyo. Now, I'm sure you've noticed that I can kind of control the piece, but like they keep on throwing down more pieces. So while I can kind of control the pieces, like it's not entirely obvious which piece I am controlling. Now, it kind of feels like I control one piece, I have it drop, and then I can control the next piece. That's how you would think, and that's 90% how it feels, but I feel like there are times when I can drop it early, and then go on to the next piece. I don't know, it's just one of those things with arcade games where somehow, like, it's not entirely clear how you're controlling things, and yet you're just so good at arcade games, you just have an instinct for how it should be played and how it should work, and you just kind of figure it out. Or not even, like I'm making it sound like I only know how to play this game because I'm some sort of arcade master, but it could just be like natural human tendency. It's like you just want to play a game a certain way. Oh, because I saw that red one and I really wanted to move the red one. So were there combos? All I know is I decimated my opponent. But I'm not sure how much of that was my skill or his lack thereof. Oh, I see. These are our opponents. So first off, my opponent was a dog. Well, that dog did about as well as I would expect it to. I mean, I might try teaching my dog how to play Puyo Puyo sometime and start beating him. And it's like, yeah, you play against the supercomputer and you're like, geez, this is impossible. Speaking of impossible, it seems like it's not giving me a bunch of colors in a row. This is one of those games where, like, it really depends on what kind of color distribution you get, and that kind of determines how much fun you have. What's interesting is, I think when he pops it out of his little cart, I think that's actually supposed to be like, you know, in Tetris, how they, like, give you a next piece sort of preview. And so I think that's what that's supposed to be. Like, he's placing one piece, and he's not going to be placing, like, any more. Like, that's just something to look forward to, I suppose. Kind of. Although, it also feels like he's placing them faster and faster. So honestly, in this game, your guess is as good as mine, frankly. Now the other thing too is, are we making combos? Are we destroying them? Oh yeah, like I was saying, like, it depends on what kind of piece distribution you're getting, and that determines how fun or bad your game is. Okay, so you can definitely send... Oh, okay. So it looks like it's Puzzle Bobble rules, where, the more stuff you drop, then... Or, okay, when you drop stuff, that is garbage sent. And it also looks like you need to connect 4 to set off a combo. Yeah, see? So I would assume that there would be some garbage showing up on their screen. Well, either that or maybe, like, you have to send a certain amount, or else it's insignificant. This is... I gotta give this game credit. Like, on one hand, it's sort of born from the DNA of Bubble Bobble, but at the same time, it also kind of isn't. And, like, it's definitely a unique control scheme. It's definitely not a control scheme that if you were a sane person, you would want to copy them for. But, like, it works. It gets the job done. Oh, dang. And And I thought they were giving me the tools to defeat them. Turns out they technically were, but not quite enough. Oh, time is your total time. Okay, I was wondering, because, like, at first I thought it took me, like, 4 minutes to defeat her, but or to lose to her, but it's, like, that felt like a little bit more than just 4 minutes. Okay. So this is tricky, but I can try playing this like I play Bubble Bobble, where you make a safe stack, and then you build off onto it. Now, one immediate problem is, again, you cannot really control where things are gonna go. Well, okay, you control where things go, but you don't really control where pieces start off. And so, like, you can build a combo up close to the top of the screen, but, like, you are just risking it all to do such a thing. And especially, oh my god, it's, like, I keep looking at the piece at the top, thinking that that's the next one I'm going to move. But it's like, no, you gotta get in the mindset of thinking like 3 moves ahead. And then you too can be a, whatever this game is, master. So the bomb actually sends garbage to them? That kind of adds like an interesting out. It's like, okay, maybe you can't like play the game, but maybe you can play the game like really quickly. And so then your strategy could be like, okay, you'll just place, because it seems like you get a bomb every, I don't know, every so many pieces. And so then your strategy can be like, okay, I'll just play fast and place bombs. And I mean, granted, it's the kind of strategy that a child would come up with, but it seems like it could win. Oh, I can't tell if that's cool or lame, that it times like your total time and not just your time to play in the match. Well, Poto Poto. I never would have heard of this game. Granted, I could have gone my entire life without really wanting to learn about this game, but there were definitely some things that you never learn about unless you go a bit off the beaten trail. But don't misquote the Robert Frost poem, because it's not about that. It's about, I don't know, regret? Like looking back at all the choices you've done and being like, hey, this was the wrong choice. Speaking of wrong choices, I just love it when a plan comes together. Although I just achieved something, I would suppose, it doesn't seem to have any sort of actual effect on my opponent, and quite frankly, it only seems to have buoyed their spirits. Wow. So apparently, I have the skills of a dog, but I do not have the skills of a small child. What's like level 3? I don't know, supercomputer? We got like IBM Watson going on here? It just, oh, it bugs me. I can't tell which piece is gonna come out next and which piece the guy just dropped. It like almost works, but, well, it kind of continues Sega's rich tradition of like hard, like, I compare this game to Columns, where obviously it's based off of Tetris, but it's different enough from Tetris that you can't claim copyright infringement. And in fact, like, it's a different game, it works differently. It's like, they're legitimately different games. Now, what's unfortunate about it is, like, Columns is way more annoying to play. Like, it's way more finicky, the controls are just kind of not quite what you'd like them to be. Is that lag? Is this puzzle game actually lagging because there's so much stuff going on? But anyway, with Columns, like, it's just like counterintuitive to play, because the whole thing about Columns is that you can arrange things diagonally. Like, you can have diagonal clear 5s now, whereas Tetris is just like entirely a spatial thing. And like, it's different, but it's not necessarily different in a good kind of way. And so this game, like, it's kind of based on Puzzle Bobble, except you've got like a different kind of control scheme, which it's different, it works, but it's also kind of more annoying. Well, now that I think about it, is it more annoying than Puzzle Bobble? Because the whole idea with Puzzle Bobble is you're shooting the pieces up from the bottom, but like, you have to actually kind of aim your shots. And so if you can't aim your shots well enough, or you don't have like sort of a guide, then that makes that game kind of impossible. It's kind of interesting, because like, this sort of game, like, there needs to be some sort of hindrance to your ability to place blocks, or else you can just place blocks in sort of an optimal pattern and then just like completely wreck your opponent. Like, both this game and Puzzle Bobble, they kind of make the controls, like, intentionally difficult. Like, Puzzle Bobble makes it so you have to, like, line up the shot by eye, and that kind of adds this sort of intentional level, like, intentional on the game developer's part of difficulty. Whereas this game, like, you have to actually move the piece through, like, the maze of pieces already placed to get it into the right spot. And, like, if there's no path there, you just can't put it there. And, it's kind of interesting to think. It's like, you may not have thought that such sort of intentional obfuscation is not only intentional, but entirely necessary. Because again, like, the actual strategy of playing the game is simple enough that you don't really have to think with that. You just, there's obviously a clear winning strategy. You make, like, a really long strand, and then you drop it once. And so then the game becomes about not so much who has the better strategy, so much as who can actually implement the strategy faster. Another thing, well, it's similar only in a metaphorical sense, but if you've ever played Magical Drop, where you kind of, like, pull down the blocks from below and you shoot them back up, and it's like, it's by colors, you match colors. And so there you're trying to make, like, combos. And the more combos you can do in a row, then the more blocks you're going to send to them. So it's like, okay, you break green, and then, like, while the green's breaking, then you try to break a red, and while the red's breaking, you try to break a blue, and you just kind of go on like that. Except, unlike Puyo Puyo, like, you can kind of set things up as things are breaking, and so it's a very frantic game. But it's not a game where, like, the actual strategy is ever unclear. Like, it's immediately clear. It's like, make the biggest combo you can. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But where the strategy comes in, where the skill comes in, is being able to make those, like, as fast as possible. But it's not about, like, who can think the best. It's just kind of who can react the best. Well, kind of. I don't want to say there's no thinking, but, like, there's not necessarily the high-level deep thinking you might think with other sorts of puzzle games. Whereas contrast this with Puyo Puyo, which actually allows for an element of tactical richness, because the whole thing about Puyo Puyo is you don't just want to make the longest chain, because then your opponent can kind of not blow his chain up a little sooner, and by the time you build, like, your chain to its maximum size, you're hit with a wall of garbage. And so there, your actual high-level strategy also comes into play. And so it's kind of interesting to look at all these different puzzle games, to kind of pick them apart, and to kind of, like, understand this sort of, like, subtle genius going on in the background. Still though, Poto Poto. I thought it had a silly name when I looked at it, and now I've gained some sort of appreciation for it. I wouldn't say it's anywhere near my favorite puzzle game, but I would say it's not that bad, and it's definitely not a clone of anything. It is its own unique puzzle game. Well, just like those guys had clear times, today we got a clear time. I don't know what time it is. You're going to have to check the YouTube timer to tell. But right now, it's going to end about now.
Poto Poto.